Welcome to the episode of Jay Leno's Garage. As you know, we are huge steam enthusiasts here at the shop. We love working with steam, and this is my 1906 Stanley Steamer Vanderbilt Cup Racer. I've had this car probably 20 years, and when I first started this website 4 or 5 years ago, we had just we scorched the boiler essentially, so it wouldn't hold water, and it just had a bunch of problems, and it kind of got put on the back burner, no pun intended, for a while, and now it's back running with a lot of updates. There's a guy named Don Borden up in Vermont, and he makes boilers for Stanley steamers. If you need a boiler, he's the guy to talk to. And this normally had a 23-inch boiler with a 20 horsepower engine. Now, steam makes horsepower differently. The bigger the boiler, the more horsepower you're going to get. So what Don made for us was a 30-inch boiler, and obviously we needed a bigger burner, we needed everything. So we're getting quite a bit more horsepower than we were before. And make no mistake, this is a pretty fast car. This thing would go on the freeway. We were holding 65 miles an hour on the freeway with this thing. And you know, when you're made of wood and you're on fire, going 65 miles an hour, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating car. Now, there's a lot of sort of modern updates to this car. This is not an original car, because being made of wood, they didn't last too long, and they were kind of put away wet, and they just sort of, most of them deteriorated. So all of them have been rebuilt to a certain extent. Bernard, you know, our shop foreman here, he did a fantastic thing. He made a flow chart to show how the air goes. Well, you'll see this here. In fact, before we go any further, take a look at this. Okay, here's another restoration we're working on. This is a 30-inch burner for our Stanley Steamer Vanderbilt Cup car. As far as we know, this is a new grate, and nobody's ever run a burner this big. Most of them are what, 23 inches?
26, I think.
26, okay. Obviously, the more fire you have, the hotter you're going to be and the faster your car is going to go. That Stanley Steamer Vanderbilt Cup car is pretty fast. Now it's going to be really fast. See, the way this works is your gas comes in, shoots in here at 140 pounds per square inch, or up to 160 or 170 as a gas, and it flows in here. And then what happened is, let's turn it on.
You can see it through here.
You see the grate through here. Your fire lights off and heats the water in your boiler. And it comes in, you want it to swirl so it reaches all parts of the grate evenly. And there are baffles that go in here.
We actually originally started with a swirl,
right,
that would come around, but it was like a cyclone inside here. And it would create a low pressure area where it would actually suck air from the other side of the grill back to underneath the part grill. So what we're trying to do now is we're trying to stop this cyclone action.
Right.
So we just build up pressure. So we've tried various different arrangements.
How many different baffles have we built?
I think this is our 4th version.
Yeah, 4th version. Okay.
I have the 5th version on the drawing board right now, the next step beyond this. So with the fences in here, we're stopping the cyclone, right, to get a more even airflow through the grate.
Yeah, you know, you think, oh, you just light a fire under a tea kettle, and that's, no, those Stanley guys were pretty smart. Fred Marriott went 127 miles an hour in a car like this in 1906, and that record was just broken by the British at 148. Not really a huge difference for 100 years. Right. But let's put this together, and we'll show you how the airflow works.
We're only working with half the burner now. We've got a bottom plate that we put on. It's a pretty tight fit. It has to be gas tight.
Yeah.
There's some screws. We've actually used smoke grenades.
Yeah.
to see how it flows. Okay. Now if we turn this over, this way. If you grab the front, all right. Light it on the front.
Okay. This mimics the jet on the actual car. Now what happens in the Stanley is the heat, your fire, vaporizes your liquid fuel, turns it into a gas, and shoots it into here, at least 140 pounds per square inch.
So what we're going to do is just going to hook up our air hose, which is about 140 psi. Then we made up this nifty little flow meter. So now we can set this on top here.
Plenty of flow there. There's a lot right there. And it just collapses down here. What you want to have is an even flow all through it. Want to try one of your smoke
Nothing
grenades?
down there. I've got a lot down here again.
So those baffles are causing it to change direction.
This is actually pretty good right through here.
There you go.
This is what I like to see all across the whole thing.
That one's perfect. Well, that gives you some idea what we're trying to do here. You want to have an even fire across the whole base of your boiler. We'll take it outside and we'll try it with a smoke grenade and show you how this works.
Got to the side there?
This is a heavy burner.
Put fire to it?
Yeah.
You don't have a match in your pocket, do you? You can see how it draws in there.
Yeah.
It actually does a pretty decent job.
Yeah, not bad.
Even though I think yeah, it's still blowing there.
Yeah, I feel it.
But you can see it's heavy on that end.
Yeah.
I think our next baffle that I got designed for it now, I think that's going to work.
The next baffle will be the one. Number 5.
Number 5.
Guaranteed.
Well, I won't go as far as guaranteed.
Well, as you can see, the car is now back together. And there's a lot of myths about Stanley steamers. They used to say, you know, that if you could hold the throttle open for 1 or 2 minutes, they would give you the car because people were so scared because they were so fast that no one had dared to do that. Well, it's all ridiculous nonsense, of course, because you just eventually run out of steam. Before we fire it up, let's take you through the car a little bit. Let me explain what the pedals do. This is your throttle, right here, hand throttle. This is your brake. And these 2 pedals here, this is your forward and reverse pedal as well. What happens here is when you have this all the way forward, your valve is letting in the maximum amount of steam, so you get full power. When you, once the car is rolling, to conserve steam, you push this halfway down. Let me show you this. Let's see. Okay, see how it's stuck right there? That's called hookup. That cuts the valve stroke, so that cuts the amount of steam going to the piston. See, with a steam engine, you have power on every stroke's a power stroke. By that I mean steam pushes the piston up, the valve slides, lets steam in the other end, pushes the piston back. So like a V8, a 2-cylinder is sort of like a V8 because every stroke is a power stroke. That's why these have such a tremendous amount of torque. And when you go into hookup like this, it cuts the amount of steam necessary. These cars get about a mile per gallon of water, and once you go into hookup, you get maybe 1.5 miles, maybe 2 miles per gallon of water. That's when you just want to cruise down the road and not use up a lot of water and a lot of fuel and a lot of steam. This is your water gauge here. It tells you how much water is in your boiler at any given time. This tells you how much water you have in your tank. You can tell by just how much water is in the gauge there. This is called the winker. Since water is not a lubricant, and steam is not a lubricant, what this does is this shoots a dollop of oil into the steam line. So as you're going down the road, as the piston gets lubricated, the steam picks up a chunk of oil, a dollop of oil, throws it in there and lubricates that. So that when that's winking, you know you're working. This is your pilot fuel. This is your steam, how much steam pressure you have. This is your steam pressure gauge here, and this is how much fuel, how your fuel pressure is. This opens your pilot fuel. This one opens your main burner. This is your handbrake. A lot of stuff to do here. You got a whistle on that side. I'll show you that in a minute. On this side here, you have your hand pump. This is how you pump up fuel pressure. If you watch that gauge, you'll see it go up because there's no electrics on a Stanley. Everything is done mechanically. You pump up the fuel by hand. Then once you're rolling the mechanical fuel pump, the wheels will run that pump, so it'll continually pump pressure in at 140 pounds per square inch. We go quite a bit higher than that, and we'll explain that in just a little bit. Well, this car has been heavily modified. Now, let me show you what we have here. These cars only had two-wheel brakes, and they were mechanical brakes, and they were new. What we've done there is we've put XK120 Jag drums on it, so they're hydraulic brakes. What we've done back here, and this is really trick, these are your mechanical pumps, and you pump by hand to keep your fuel pressure up. Obviously, the lower your fuel pressure, the less power you're going to have. So what we've done here is we've installed two electric fuel pumps that we just press a button and that'll maintain pressure at 140 pounds per square inch. This is your fuel regulator. We've actually moved that up to 180 pounds per square inch so we can get a lot more power out of it. And these two electric batteries, these two Optima batteries here, they run the electric fuel pump and the electric lights. Normally this would have acetylene lights that you light with a match. Another modification, and we built stop lights into these antique lamps here. What you have here is this tank is air and this tank is fuel. And you'll see in a minute, you fill this with air and the air forces the fuel into the burner. A guy named, now normally I had another brass set of these here, and we were going down the road one day and we're running a little higher than normal fuel pressure, and it just split apart and covered everybody in fuel. Well, that's not a good thing. So a guy named Don Hoke, Vintage Steam Products, if you have a Stanley or a White or any steam product, he makes wonderful steam fittings and steam products, Vintage Steam Products. He's out of Dallas, Texas. He made these new ones here, and these have been pressure tested to 320 pounds per square inch, so that doesn't happen again. This here is a manual lever to operate your water pumps. This allows you to pump more or less water into the boiler as you're driving. If you're going down the road, you're running full throttle, obviously you're using a tremendous amount of water, so you turn this on and this engages the pumps to continue pumping water. Let's get ready to fire it up. I'll show you what you do. You need this to keep your hood open. What we're going to do now is light the pilot. What the pilot does is, in a Stanley steam car, it runs on gasoline, or it can run on kerosene. This one runs on gasoline. And what happens is your gasoline is a liquid, but you want it to go into the burner as a gas. So you light your pilot like you'd have on a water heater. That heats the branch forks. That heats the tubes that the gas comes in. When the gas comes down, it's been heated by that, it turns into a gaseous state, and it's then forced into the boiler at 140 to 180 pounds per square inch. That's what you light it with here. Okay. Now I don't know if you can see the fire that's in there. This is your water tank right here, and this is your boiler right here. Now this one, a normal Stanley boiler has about 800 tubes. This has 1,018 tubes. It's about 30%, 35% bigger than normal to give us a lot more heat, to make a lot more fire and a lot more range. Because what happens with a steam car is, especially a Stanley, if you got a full boiler, you got 600 pounds, you open the throttle and you're going down the road and you got 500, 400, 300, 200, then you kind of have to slow down and pull over and let the heat build up again and make more steam. But if you have a big enough fire, you can maintain 60, 70 miles an hour. Right now what we're doing is heating the branch forks, so getting ready to turn this into a gaseous state. Takes about 20 minutes, 10, 15, 20 minutes maybe. a lot of rumors about Stanley's. They've never had a boiler blow up. These boilers are wrapped in piano wire, and what they are is you have a copper tube. It's what they call a fire tube boiler, and the fire is underneath. As long as there's water around the tube, it'll boil. Now, when you run low on water, what happens is the fire will scorch the tube. The copper tube will begin to melt, and the seal will be gone, like a fusible plug, and you lose pressure. And so consequently, they don't blow up. Although they will occasionally backfire on you, well, like this one did to me. Take a look. There you go. There you go. Well, you don't have any hair on your arms. This is why you gotta have to be careful. Much easier than waxing. People enjoy seeing that. I have no idea why. If you have no hair on your arms and no eyebrows left, you are a true steam guy. Okay. These are blow-off valves. We'll show you those later. What we need to do now is put some air to everything. Which first thing you want to do is pump up about 25, 30 pounds of gas. Right there. As you can see, we have that now. Now I will fill the, bring that up to about, I should be able to get 120 in here, right? All right, that's good for now. Now I could hand pump it like this to bring it to 140, or I could just hit my electric fuel pump here, and you'll see it climbing. See it climbing? All right, now we are ready to fire the boiler. All right, you hear it ignite. Get a little bit of heat out of there. Feel the heat coming out of here. Ooh, that's getting toasty. Now, in the old days, it would have been packed with asbestos, but nowadays we just use furnace cement. It works just as well. You close that off. See, a steam car is different than a gas car. A gas car, you're trying to get as much heat out of the engine as possible through the exhaust. A steam car, you're trying to keep as much heat in as you can. So any place heat escapes, you just cover it with this furnace cement. Now, what we need to do now is fill this tank with water, and we'll roll it out to the door. These are fascinating cars. You know, they're so different from internal combustion engines. Like this Stanley turns, I believe, 357 revolutions per mile. Just Now, one thing you want to do over here, while it's firing up, you want to open your drip valve. What that does is, obviously, when steam condenses, it turns into water again. And you don't want water in your cylinder because water can't be compressed. So as soon as you boom, you'll hydraulic your cylinder and you'll crack your block. So what you do is you open this valve. That lets any water or steam drip out. You want to make sure you've got nice hot steam, superheated steam that's not wet, because obviously, as I said, water can't compress. When the piston comes up, if there's too much water, bang, you'll crack a block. Yes, I've done that too. As you can see, we've converted it to hydraulic brakes. This is the little master cylinder in here. We got plenty of fluid. This is your throttle. We have that open now. All right, let's roll it outside. Put our cap on. Take our patented hood opener. Now we just loosely tie this strap, so if it does blow, it doesn't blow the hood apart. It just kind of goes. Now what I'm going to do now is drain some water out of the boiler, because it has just a little too much in it and there's no room for steam, so we're full all the way up. So I'm going to open these, let some water out.
Actually, it's going about an inch right now.
Are we okay?
Yeah, because you're Let it off a little bit more.
Starting to get a bit of steam pressure now. While we're waiting for steam pressure, there's my pilot light. When it's flickering, that shows you that the flame is still lit. That's sort of a sign. That's a safety feature. I've got 120 pounds of fuel pressure. I'll bring that up using my electric pumps. And we're still waiting for steam pressure to rise. You know, you're heating about 15 gallons of water on like a tea kettle, so it takes a little while. Now what this is a pricker. You use this to put in the, sometimes the jets get a little clogged and this cleans them out. What I'm doing here is I open this drip valve and this drains any water out of the cylinder. So I'll go back and forth a couple of times. Okay, that looks like it's pretty dry. So once you close that up, it's pretty quiet. Now this Stanley has an open exhaust, so there's no muffler on it, so it's a little noisier, but it's still pretty quiet compared to a gas car. Thanks. Steam. 1906. Most people have no idea how steam works. It's so totally different than a gas car. Quiet, lots of torque, but it's pretty fast. Don't forget, it's 1906. The Model T hadn't even been invented yet. That didn't come till 08. 09, actually. And see, when you're sitting at a light, you're dead quiet. No clutch, no transmission. With a steam car, you have direct drive. Your engine is connected directly to the rear wheels because you have so much torque. You don't need a transmission. Happy New Year, my friend. These take about 15 minutes to get everything nice and hot. Once everything is nice and hot, boy, she really runs good. And with this big boiler, you're able to maintain 500 or 600 pounds of pressure at 30 or 40 or 50 miles an hour. You know, a lot of people don't realize steam technology was 100 years old when this car was built. A man named Richard Trevithick in England, he was running steam coaches in 1803. Right now we're maintaining 65 miles an hour with 500 pounds of steam. Any chance you get to coast in a steam car, you want to do it because that'll build up your reserve. When I come to a corner, I shut off the throttle, I coast a little bit, and the fire gets a chance to heat up and give me a few more pounds of steam. know, it's hard to understand how fast this car was back in 1906. Most people never even ridden an automobile. And to have a car that could go a mile a minute, 60 miles an hour, that was pretty crazy. In fact, Fred Marriott in 1906 with a Stanley set the world record for 127 miles an hour. Now we're going to do what we call blow down the boiler. After you run a steam car, to get all the scale out of it, you bring it up to pressure and then open the valves, and you'll see just how much pressure this thing has. It's got a lot of pressure. Shut up! Shut it up! That's good. Now you know that's about 475 pounds of steam in there. Steam pressure is about 475. What we're going to do is descale the boilers. You blow out the boilers, and let me show you what just 100 pounds of steam is like. That was 50 pounds. That was 50 pounds of steam. So you figure this thing's got 600 pounds. So it's quite a lot of power. Anyway, I've still got enough power to drive it back into the garage. I've got, what happens now is all the fire shut off. It's all shut off. It's holding pressure. And as it sits overnight, the vacuum will suck water back into the boiler and fill it up again, so you're ready to go the next morning. So it's, as you can see, virtually maintenance free. So I hope you enjoyed this little Stanley adventure. See you next week.